Hi, and welcome back. We're talking about needs today and the Get What You Need workbook, a workbook for helping you figure out what you need and get your needs met so that you can move from surviving to thriving. I'm Jen. I'm a holistic family consultant, and I support queer, non monogamous, and neurodiverse families to have relationships in which everybody thrives, everybody gets their needs met, and it feels joyful and connected. And if you need a copy of the workbook, it's free. You can get that through the download link in the description below the video, and today we're talking about needs in conflict. So there's a whole playlist if you need one of the other sections in the workbook. But this time we're talking about this is really the juicy meat of all of it. A lot of us, we come to this because it feels like we have to sacrifice a need in order to meet somebody else's needs because the needs are conflicting. And so that's really the heart of why we're doing this. But it's also the difficult part. And so it's really important that you do the other sections first and really get in touch with your own need before you consider how it intersects with somebody else's need. Because if you don't have a good handle on your need, if you don't have a good handle on all the layers that are making it difficult to get your need met, then it's going to be really hard to bring compassion to the way this impacts you and another person. So do that part first, and then come to this. And so we're primarily looking at how a need of yours could be in conflict with a child's need or a partner's need. But this really could be with anyone. So if there's another relationship that comes to mind, feel free to explore that. There's no right or wrong with this. This could even be two of your own competing needs. I had this come up with a client somewhat recently where there was a need for sleep and a need for creativity, and they were exploring, kind of sometimes I clearly need to sleep and sometimes I clearly need to be creative, and sometimes I'm like sitting there at 9 o'clock after my kids go to bed, and I don't know, I'm tired, but also I'm really feeling like I need some creative outlet, and I don't know what I should do. Should I stay up late and be creative, or should I go to bed early? And I don't know. So that could be a place to explore and untangle with this as well if you have two needs of your own that seem like they're in competition with each other. Uh, this is much harder than just looking at your own need. And that's okay. So I just want to name that it might, you might need more help here than you've needed on the previous workbook sections, and that's okay. The other piece that's needed here is before you can have empathy and compassion for somebody else's need or for how they intersect, or creativity about how they can both get met, first you have to have space for you and your experience about their need. So the rest of this workbook has been about getting in touch with your need. And now there needs to be some space for you to have your feelings about this other person and their need and how it impacts you, and maybe how it is hard for you, or maybe how it doesn't feel like you can meet the need, or how you have been sacrificing yourself to meet the need, whatever it is, or what insecurities it brings up for you. All of that is super valid, and there has to be room for that before you can really put yourself in their shoes. So the prompts in this and the way that I talk about it is I suggest that you go back through the workbook, the earlier sections, in the same 4 steps that you did for your need, and consider their need. And this might even need to be several steps, because at the very least, you've got to do those 4 steps considering from the other person's perspective about what their need is like. And you may also need to do this considering your beliefs and your skills and all of that for how you feel about their need, especially if it's a need you feel responsible for meeting for them, or if they're a child, especially a young child. You may also need to look at the beliefs and the skills that you have about the conflict itself. What does it mean for you to have a need in conflict with someone you care about? Do you have skills related to managing and resolving a conflict? Do you have the ability to hold compassion while also advocating for yourself? These are complex skills, and they may take some work to develop if they're not things that you've had familiarity and practice with. So before you even look at the very last page of the workbook, which is about the prompts to creatively consider how to navigate both needs at the same time, you really need to understand and explore all of the layers of everything that is behind the conflict, and what it's like for you and the other person and the relational space, the conflict itself. Um, and if you need help sifting through any of that, that's what I do. That's what I'm here for. This is a large part of how I support families. Because when you're in conflict with somebody, it can be helpful to have somebody who's not in that conflict, who can clearly see and bring the compassion to that, and help you untangle all of those layers, and really see to the heart of the reality, which is that you want to feel good, you want your important person to feel good, you want the relationship between you to feel good, and that's a skillful and sometimes complex proposition, and that's what I do. I help you navigate that. So please do get in contact with me if that is where the space where you are. uh, so then when it comes to the creative problem solving of navigating both of these needs, um, some of these prompts are sort of talking about, um, is there a way that either these two needs can be met in different ways at the same time? Or is there a way that you can like proactively meet one before it's desperate, so that then there's more time and space to meet the other person's need? Is there a way that you can bring in a layer of support? Can somebody else, especially with children, can somebody else meet some of the child's needs so that there's more space for you to get your own needs met? Um, there's a lot of different ways, and it depends on what the needs are and why they're in conflict, what strategies might be helpful. But like one example from my own life is that I have uh, one child who really likes to verbally stim. So like he'll find it soothing to be blah 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 for hours sometimes, and I don't want to take that away from him because it's soothing, but it also is overstimulating for me and I find it stressful. So I in that moment have a need for quiet, for calm, and he has a need for his stim. And how do we balance that conflict? And one of the strategies that works for us is for me to put in earplugs so that I don't have to hear it at a level that is overwhelming for me, and he doesn't have to stop. Another strategy that works for us sometimes, depending on the situation, is for him to verbally stim in a different room from me. Either I leave the room or he leaves the room, so that we can be in different spaces and both be getting our needs met. Sometimes, depending on the situation, I might be able to tolerate it for a while because he really needs it and I don't have access to one of those other strategies. Or sometimes he might be able to pause for a while if I really need a break and he doesn't have access to those strategies. And all of that is, those are three strategies to meet the same two conflicting needs. And that kind of flexibility comes from really understanding and negotiating all of the layers involved in that conflict. And that's a relatively simple need. It can get more complicated and more difficult than that. And so again, just acknowledging that this is the advanced level stuff. This is like the graduate level work. So please don't hesitate to ask for the help that you need, if navigating this on your own feels like a lot. So I'm hoping, my genuine and true hope is that this workbook will give you tools and a framework, and the ability to think through and gain insight and make changes that make your life better, and that you won't need help for all of it, that you'll be able to do a lot of this work and make a lot of progress on your own or together with the people that are important to you, and that I'm here as a layer of support for you if it turns out that there are things that are too big or too difficult, or that you need some help from someone with an outside perspective. That's what I'm here for. So you can find the link to the workbook and how to get in touch with me, in the notes below this video, and the whole playlist, because this is the end of the workbook, but there's lots more covering the rest of the content. So I look forward to hearing from you soon.